In 21 days, I was in Kailash, trekked. My muscle mass had gone down, my legs had become like this. Always I've been walking, trekking, playing games, but my muscle mass went down so much in these 8 weeks, I just shrank like that.
Imagine a mountain that is around 6,600 meters high. It sounds very high, but there are mountains in the world that are much higher and more dangerous than this. Still, the question is, why has no human officially reached the top of Mount Kailash even today? And it's not just about climbing. 4 major religions have considered this mountain sacred for thousands of years. Some of Asia's most important rivers have their sources in this region. Mountaineers have talked about strange experiences here. Stories have come forward about compasses not working properly, and some people have even claimed that time passes in an unusual way here. But the real question goes even further. Some ancient traditions claim that inside or beneath this mountain, there is a hidden place that an ordinary human may never have been able to see. And the talk there is not about some treasure, but about a kind of knowledge that has been called the seed of the next world. Is any of this true, or have centuries-old stories made an already mysterious mountain even more mysterious? Stay until the end of the video, because in the end, we will put all these claims together and look at them. Before we move ahead in the video, please subscribe to the channel so you can watch videos like this first. In the extremely remote Ngari region of western Tibet, there stands a mountain that, at first glance, may not seem very strange to you. Its name is Mount Kailash. The height of Mount Kailash is around 6,600 meters. Now, if you compare it with the highest peaks in the world, it does not seem like a very huge mountain. Mount Everest is around 9,000 meters high. Peaks like K2 and Nanga Parbat are also much higher than Kailash and are known all over the world for their dangerous climbs. But this is where the story of Kailash becomes interesting, because when it comes to height, it is not a challenge like Everest or K2. Looking at it, it does not seem like reaching its summit should be completely impossible for humans. Mountaineers around the world have climbed peaks that are even higher and more difficult than this. There are many peaks where snow, rocks, strong winds, and bad weather create a danger to life at every step. Then what is it about Kailash? To this day, there is no officially recognized successful human climb to its summit. And the most surprising thing is that the reason is not said to be only its height or technical difficulty. So the question is simple. If Kailash is not the highest mountain in the world, and if it is not even considered the most technically difficult peak in the world, then why has reaching its summit remained so difficult? Is the reason only the weather and the route? Or is there something connected to this mountain that has kept people from going too close to it for centuries? The answer to this question may not be hidden in the height of the mountain, but in its identity. And this is exactly what makes Kailash completely different from other mountains. Now, look at Kailash a little more carefully. Its most special thing is not just its height, but its shape. The mountain has 4 large faces that appear to be connected with the north, south, east, and west directions. Because of this, many people find its shape different from ordinary mountains and much more organized. From a distance, Kailash looks somewhat like a giant pyramid. Its peaks and slopes remain covered with snow for most of the year, so its full shape appears even clearer. If you look at the other peaks around it, you will often see rocks, uneven slopes, and irregular shapes. But the symmetry of Kailash gives it a slightly different feeling. In the early 20th century, some travelers and explorers who went to this region also described its shape as unusual and very well organized. This is where the question started to arise. Could this simply be a coincidence created by nature? From a scientific point of view, the answer is quite straightforward. The layers of rock in Kailash, geological processes that have been happening for millions of years, and continuous erosion can together create such a shape. Mountains do not always have to be completely irregular in their appearance. But this is where another side of the story begins. Some people claim that the very organized shape of Kailash cannot be the result of natural processes alone. According to them, it could also be some kind of ancient engineering or artificial structure. However, there is no reliable scientific evidence supporting this idea, and mainstream geology does not accept it. So far, the strongest scientific answer is that it is natural. But even if we consider its strange shape to be just a coincidence, another coincidence appears, and this one is much bigger. There is another thing in the story of Kailash that makes it a little different from other mountains, and this time, it is not about a mysterious shape or climbing, but about water. The area around Kailash is connected to some of the most important river systems in Asia. These include major rivers like the Indus, Brahmaputra, Sutlej, and Karnali. These rivers move forward in different directions and later become the basis of life for huge parts of South Asia. Think about it. River systems that begin around one relatively small geographical region eventually become connected to farming, drinking water, and the lives of hundreds of millions of people across such a huge area. This is what makes Kailash much more important than just a mountain. However, understanding the actual sources of these rivers was not always this easy. In ancient times, travelers' accounts, local beliefs, and early surveys contained many different kinds of information. Different surveys also showed differences regarding the sources. Later, researchers used continuous fieldwork and mapping to understand the sources of these river systems much better. Now, another interesting thing comes up here. In ancient Hindu cosmology, there is a description of Mount Meru. Meru is considered a kind of axis standing at the center of the universe, around which the structure of the world is connected. Many ancient descriptions also mention the four directions and the rivers connected to them. So the question arises, was Meru only a religious and symbolic idea? Or could it contain a glimpse of some very old geographical knowledge? We do not have a definite answer to this today. But when we look at Kailash together with the entire geography of these four major river systems, the story definitely becomes much more interesting than before. And now add religion to this, and the picture becomes even more mysterious. What makes Kailash special is not just its shape or the rivers around it. Its biggest identity may be the fact that this mountain is considered extremely sacred in different religious traditions around the world. In Hinduism, Kailash is considered the home of Lord Shiva. It is believed that Shiva remains absorbed in meditation and penance on this mountain. That is why placing a human foot on the summit of Kailash is considered not just a difficult mountain climb, but also religiously inappropriate. Because of this, people who come here do not climb the mountain. Instead, they walk around it in a pilgrimage known as parikrama. In Tibetan Buddhism, Kailash also has very deep importance. Here, it is connected with Mount Meru, which is considered a kind of cosmic axis present at the center of the universe. In other words, an axis around which the entire structure of the universe is imagined. From this perspective, Kailash becomes not just a mountain, but a symbol of spiritual knowledge and liberation. Jainism also has an important tradition connected with the Kailash region. It is believed that the first Tirthankara, Rishabhanatha, attained liberation in this region. Because of this, this place is also considered extremely sacred in the Jain tradition. And then comes the Bon tradition, which existed in Tibet before Buddhism arrived. In this tradition too, Kailash was considered a special spiritual place where a connection between the sky and the earth was established. Now just think about it. 4 different religious traditions, whose history and development were separate from each other, still consider the same mountain exceptionally sacred. A place like this is described in religious studies as an axis mundi, meaning the central axis of the world, a place that humans consider to be a center between the earth and some higher spiritual world. And when a place is considered so sacred for thousands of years, the next question becomes even more interesting. Did this sacredness ever stop a human being from reaching its summit? One of the most famous stories connected with Kailash comes from a period when stories were told about a conflict over religious influence between the Buddhist tradition and the old Bon tradition in Tibet. This is more of a religious legend than history, but it is still mentioned in traditions connected with Kailash. According to the story, a challenge took place between a powerful practitioner of the Bon tradition, Naro Bonchung, and the famous Buddhist yogi Milarepa. The challenge was to decide who had the spiritual authority over Kailash. The competition was simple. The person who reached the top of the mountain first would be considered the winner. Naro Bonchung had a magical drum. It is said that he used the drum as his ride and started flying rapidly toward the summit of the mountain. Those watching believed that his victory was now certain, but Milarepa did not hurry. The story says that he remained sitting below in meditation and waited for the final moment. Then morning came. As soon as the first ray of sunlight appeared, Milarepa is said to have ridden that ray and quickly reached the top, arriving before Naro Bonchung. According to the story, Naro Bonchung was so shocked when he saw this that the drum slipped from his hands and fell toward the southern side of the mountain. Even today, some people connect a long, straight line visible there with that event. Of course, there is no scientific evidence for this entire event. It should be understood only as part of Tibetan religious tradition and legend. But the real importance of this story may not be in its miracle, but in its message. After this, Kailash came to be seen as a place that humans should not try to conquer with their own strength. In other words, Kailash was not considered something to be conquered, but a place to be respected and walked around. And then, centuries later, when modern mountaineers began setting out to conquer the peaks of the Himalayas, this same old belief stood in front of a new question. But then, a time came when mountaineers from other parts of the world started measuring and climbing the peaks of the Himalayas. One by one, the major peaks began to be mapped, and expeditions were started even on mountains that were once considered impossible for humans to climb. In such a situation, it was natural for attention to turn toward Kailash. Its height was not as great as the highest peaks in the world, so, on paper, it did not seem like a goal that should be impossible to achieve. In 1926, British mountaineer Hugh Rutledge closely surveyed the northern side of Kailash. In his assessment, climbing this mountain seemed extremely difficult, even practically impossible. Around the same time, an exploration was also made of the southern route. A possible route was visible, but heavy snowfall and bad weather made it impossible to move forward. Then, in 1936, a famous story connected with Austrian explorer Herbert Tichy comes up. It is said that he asked a local lama whether anyone could ever climb to the summit of Kailash. The answer was, only a person who is completely free of sin can climb it. This answer was itself a religious belief, not a scientific rule. But after this, the story of Kailash became even more interesting. Even after several attempts, no expedition was successful. And one thing worth noticing is that the story here is generally not about some major mountaineering tragedy. Many attempts stopped because of weather, the route, or other circumstances. Now, 3 different kinds of restrictions can be seen together here. First, religious restriction, the centuries-old belief that the summit should not be climbed. Second, government restriction, control over access to the area and mountaineering. And third, the restraint of the mountaineers themselves, meaning that even when they had the desire and ability, they stepped back from conquering this mountain. These 3 layers are what make Kailash different from other peaks. But the next question is, if someone puts these religious and social boundaries aside, would modern law also allow them to go to the summit? So far, we have looked at religious beliefs and the mountaineers' own choices as reasons why Kailash has not been climbed. But there is also a third and very direct reason here: law. Kailash is located in the area of western Tibet, which comes under Chinese administrative control. In this entire region, permits and government rules apply to entry and mountaineering. This means a mountaineer cannot simply pick up their equipment, reach the area, and say, "Today, I am going to climb Kailash." It is not that easy. Interestingly, there are separate mountaineering systems for Tibet and other major Himalayan peaks. For example, climbing the northern side of Everest also requires a fixed process, permits, and expedition-related rules. Mountaineers apply, get permission, and plan their climb according to the rules. But Kailash appears to be different from this system. Its summit has not been made available for normal mountaineering. So the issue is not simply that someone tried and found the route difficult. The problem is also that, legally, the path to reach the summit and climb it is not open. Now, just think about it for a moment. If someone does not believe in religious beliefs, does not care about the sacredness of this mountain, and simply wants to reach its summit as a mountaineer, what would happen? This is where the story becomes even more interesting, because even then, they would not only face a closed permit system. There are also many stories connected with Kailash claiming that when humans go close to the mountain, people and their equipment stop working in the normal way. Some stories talk about time passing in strange ways, while others talk about suddenly feeling mental pressure. And now we reach the part of the story that is described as the most mysterious, the so-called anchor point. Now the story reaches the part that is described as the most mysterious. Some alleged old handwritten texts mention a place around Kailash called the anchor point. It is claimed that there is a boundary zone of around 15 kilometers around the mountain, and after reaching there, the way time is felt no longer remains normal. According to these stories, some pilgrims felt changes after going close to the mountain, as if their age was increasing faster than normal. Some stories mention hair and nails growing quickly, while others say that several hours felt either much longer or much shorter. It sounds like something from a movie story. But it is important to stop here and understand what science says about this. According to Einstein's general relativity, time does not move at exactly the same speed everywhere. Gravity affects space-time, and because of this, extremely small differences in time can occur under different conditions. Even technologies like GPS have to account for these relativistic effects. But this absolutely does not mean that a person standing near a mountain on Earth will suddenly become decades older within a few hours. There is no established scientific evidence proving such an event. The effects of high altitude on the body and mind also cannot be ignored. Lack of oxygen, dehydration, extreme cold, and exhaustion can greatly affect a person's thinking and physical condition. There are also stories on the internet about an alleged expedition from the 1990s in which some people supposedly experienced their hair turning white and their age increasing rapidly. But no reliable medical records or official expedition reports confirming this have come forward. Different versions of the story also exist. So for now, it is more appropriate to look at this as an internet legend. But not every mysterious story connected with Kailash is only about time. Some claims are directly connected to the human mind and behavior. After the claims about time, another strange story connected with Kailash comes up. Some monks call it the return field. In simple words, it is described as an alleged mental pressure in which a person suddenly starts feeling from inside that they should not go any further. Now, feeling afraid is not unusual. Anyone can feel scared while looking at a snowy slope standing thousands of meters above sea level. But the difference in this story is that several experienced mountaineers have also claimed to feel the same kind of uneasiness. It is said that in 2001, a team of Spanish mountaineers received rare official permission to climb Kailash. The team reportedly included mountaineers who had experience on difficult peaks like Everest and K2. But according to the story, they could not even reach the upper slopes of the mountain. The interesting thing claimed is that there was no major storm at that time, no clear technical accident, and no equipment failure that could be given as a direct reason for turning back. In other words, according to the story, the problem was not coming from outside, but was being felt from within. But does this really mean that some mysterious field existed? Not necessarily. At very high altitudes, lack of oxygen can affect thinking and decision-making ability. Snowy and rocky terrain can also change the way a person judges distance and slope. Apart from this, stress, exhaustion, and the mental state of the entire team can also affect each other. And if a mountaineer has already heard that climbing Kailash is forbidden, then expectations and the religious atmosphere can also influence their decision. So for now, the return field should only be considered a mysterious claim, not a proven scientific event. But the next question is a little different. If we put the human mind aside, do the instruments around Kailash also behave strangely? So far, we have heard stories connected with Kailash that were related to the human body and mind. But there are also some claims saying that even human equipment around the mountain does not work in the normal way. Many travelers and mountaineers' stories mention the compass. It is said that in some places, the compass needle starts spinning continuously, sometimes gets stuck in one direction, and sometimes stops working properly. Some reports also claim that different compasses in the same area showed almost the same problem. If this happens, we do not necessarily have to look toward some mysterious force for an explanation. Magnetic anomalies in mountains are not unheard of. Some minerals present in rocks, and their special structure can affect the local magnetic field. Questions like this have also been raised regarding the geological composition of the Kailash region. After this, some other claims also come forward. Stories about aircraft flying around Kailash mention problems in instrument readings, strange behavior of the altimeter or heading system, and sudden turbulence. However, all these claims have not been independently confirmed with the same level of strength. There are also airspace restrictions in this area, so it is not easy to directly compare normal aviation activity here with other places. In recent years, similar stories about drones have also appeared on the internet. Some operators have talked about signal loss and equipment failure, while some stories even claim that drones were never recovered. But here, it is very important to understand one difference. An instrument behaving unusually is not, by itself, proof that some unknown or supernatural technology exists there. There can also be normal reasons such as magnetic interference, signal problems, weather, and technical faults. Still, the question remains, if some old texts are also claimed to mention a mysterious area around the mountain, then what exactly is written in those texts? And this is where the story moves toward its biggest mystery. Now the story reaches the place that is described as the biggest mystery connected with Kailash. Some alleged old handwritten texts claim that there is a chamber inside or beneath the mountain called the Hall of Records. But here, there is no talk of gold, silver, or treasure. According to the stories, some kind of encoded knowledge is preserved inside that chamber, knowledge described as much older and more important than ordinary human understanding. It is said that these texts contain information about the beginning of human civilization from a time even earlier than the period recorded in our normal history books. Not only this, they are also claimed to mention some major turning points in human history. That is, important changes that may come in the future. But among all of this, one phrase is the most mysterious: seed of the next world, meaning the seed of the next world. What exactly this means is not clearly explained in these stories. Some interpretations connect it with some special kind of knowledge, while others describe it as something that has been preserved for a future civilization. And here another claim connected with the monks comes forward. According to them, all the mysterious things connected with Kailash are not separate events, but are connected to one single purpose. Stories about changes in time, the mental pressure that makes people turn back, equipment stopping its work, and the restriction on reaching the summit, all of these are seen as being connected to the protection of that hidden chamber. In other words, according to the story, the mountain itself is the guardian of that mystery. But now the biggest question is this: if the seed of the next world is really the name of some thing, knowledge, or physical object, then who exactly is it being kept safe for? And perhaps the biggest mystery of this story is that we still do not know the answer today. So far, we have looked at many different things connected with Kailash, a mountain around 6,600 meters high, whose shape looks somewhat different from other peaks. Major river systems like the Indus, Brahmaputra, Sutlej, and Karnali are connected to the area around it. It is also compared with the story of the ancient Mount Meru. In Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, and Bon traditions, it is considered extremely sacred for different reasons. Then comes the thousands of years old prohibition against climbing it, modern mountaineering attempts, and government restrictions. After that, we also heard about the anchor point, stories of time passing in unusual ways, the return field, and claims about compasses and other equipment not working properly. And finally came the mystery of the alleged Hall of Records and the seed of the next world. Now, if we put all of this together, at least 3 possibilities come forward. The first possibility is completely natural. The geology of the mountain can explain its shape. High altitude can affect the body and mind. Magnetic anomalies can affect a compass, and religious traditions can explain beliefs that have continued for centuries. The second possibility could be that some unusual events really happened at some point, and as they were passed down from generation to generation, new mysteries kept getting added to them. In other words, real observations may have slowly turned into mythology. And the third possibility is the most honest one. We simply do not know for sure yet. Many of these mysterious claims have not been independently confirmed, so it would not be right to immediately reach one particular conclusion. Because mystery does not mean that every story is true, but saying that every story is false is also an equally easy conclusion. So why does Kailash seem so mysterious after all? Is the real problem actually in the mountain, or is it in the stories that humans have been writing over it for thousands of years? Maybe this is exactly the question that does not end the story, but makes it even more interesting. If you like stories about such unexplained places, then subscribe to the channel. We will meet again in the story of another mysterious place just like this.